you've had an accident and somebody has been killed in this accident. You've got the body in the boot. Who from the band would you have help you get rid of that body?
I can answer that question already, to be honest, because I know straight away. Because, yeah, I'm not saying the scenario's happened.
I was going to say, it was only last week.
Right then, team. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Scratch Record podcast. We are joined today by a superb band from Leeds that have some amazing accolades so far. They've played live at Leeds, the Isle of Wight, and they were pre-game on one of the Josh Warrington fights too. They've been used in Soccer AM, Watch Dogs, on BT Sport, and the most important one, they've been backing tracks to Leeds United. So we have Johnny here today from Apollo Junction. Welcome, mate.
Hi guys, nice to be here. Nice to speak to you all. Hope you're well.
Yeah, how you been doing? All right.
Yeah, we're good, thanks. We're good. Yeah, very well. Speaking to you from a snowy Leeds at the moment, so lots of snow coming down. So yeah, looking very, very Christmassy outside, which is nice. But yeah, no, we're all good, thank you. Yeah, surviving this crazy world.
Yeah, good. Right, well, should we get into the nitty gritty of it then? Let's try and start off with, for people that don't know who you are, because you've got a massive fan base in Leeds, but trying to get out and about a little bit further is something which I can see you lot are pushing for with your new singles. So let's give people what they want to know about you. What type of band are you, and what sort of music have you been creating?
Yeah, well, we're a 5-piece from Leeds. We have been together for a few years now, and yeah, we kind of write. We write songs from our influences really, and our influences are quite diverse across each band member. But yeah, describing us, we're kind of somewhere between the Beatles on one hand through to sort of New Order on the other hand. So we're sort of that sort of middle ground.
Bit of
electro.
Everything.
Bit of everything, a bit of electro, indie, rock, pop, I think is the phrase that we sometimes use. So yeah.
Nice.
Okay, that's really cool. So has it always been the same 5 members all the way through being a band?
Always been the same 5, yeah, with the original band, yeah. So I think we've been together for God, put me on the spot now, but I think about 7 years, maybe 6 or 7 years, give or take. And yeah, we've always been consistent all the way through. So we sort of knew each other before that. We've been sort of in bands for a long time now, but we sort of all knew each other before in separate bands. And yeah, when those sort of bands ended, we kind of had a conversation, probably drunkenly in a pub somewhere, that sort of said we should probably get together and do a jam. And that all happened, and yeah, it was a weird moment. It sounds a bit cheesy, but it just clicked. We just kind of came together in a rehearsal room, and we jammed a few ideas that were kind of sort of doing the rounds. And yeah, it was just like a bit of a moment where we just thought, yeah, this feels really good.
Yeah, good. It just happens like that. I think like we've had a few bands that have come on, and they say like literally they didn't know each other at all, and then you just say, oh, you play an instrument, let's just do it. And then there's just something about like random people, you can come together, and it doesn't matter if you know each other for years or not at all, but sometimes something just clicks, doesn't it? But
it does. Yeah, no, I can remember it to this day, because me and Ben, the bass player, had been working together previously, and we were writing a few songs, and Matt, Jamie and Sam, the band, and that band sort of broke up, and we just had a conversation, and I can remember sitting in the rehearsal room waiting for the 3 of them to arrive, and then walking in and just sort of instantly feeling like I knew them. It sounds really weird.
Yeah.
And, we kind of, plugged in instruments and tuned up and whatnot. And kind of played one song that we'd sort of agreed to sort of learn. And it just instantly felt like we'd been a band for a long time. And the rest is history, really. So, yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. So have you always been
cheesy,
based?
I know, but yeah.
Yeah. Have you always been based in Leeds? Are you all Leeds born and bred, or did you come to that area for university, or what happened what was the story behind that?
So I think so. Matt's from outskirts of Leeds, so he's a Wetherby boy. Jamie and Ben are Leeds, sort of born and bred. Sam's from Boston Spa, and I'm from London originally. So I came to uni in Leeds in 20. Well, it must have been earlier than 20. It must be about 2007, 2008. So I did my uni course here and just kind of fell in love with Leeds and the city, and obviously made lots of friends and whatnot, and just decided to base myself here. So I'm an honorary Yorkshireman by trade at the moment. So
that's really cool. I think it's one of those places. I mean, Elle will testify because he went to uni there.
Yeah, I went to uni there.
But it's one of those places you go to and you do fall in love with a little bit. It's an amazing city, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, great vibe, great great people. The music venues there has obviously changed quite a bit over the last few years. We had some really great sort of independent venues that have been massively impacted by, just general kind of stuff going on in the city. But yeah, the spirit is there, and the love of new bands and new music has always been there, and it's just a great place to kind of live. So yeah, highly recommend it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, don't say that; it'll be gone. It'll literally.
Oh, no, because I'm looking at going back for a master's next year. I mean, I'm undecided because I love the city. I think it's such a brilliant place. It's such a good place.
There's so much going on, isn't there? Not currently. I mean, you walk through the streets now, and it's like this is like a zombie town. It's quite sad, really. But in the olden world, such a vibrant place. Lots going on. Places buzzing with just all sorts. It's it's a great place.
Did you lot start playing your gigs in Leeds? Was that where you kind of based and then kind of spread out a little bit further?
Yeah, so we were a band for a couple of years before we even sort of took it sort of seriously. Really, we started writing together, and we had no real intention of doing it properly. We just kind of loved writing. We loved the process of writing. We loved the process of just kind of playing and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was Ben actually who we recorded a couple of demos just for our own sort of purposes, really. And Ben sent a demo off to Steve Lamacq without us knowing about it. He picked it up and started playing it. And then it was a case of, people are asking, who we are, and have we got any gigs coming up? So we had to kind of, jump on that quite quickly and get some gigs arranged in Leeds. And so we started gigging in Leeds, just kind of, local sort of venues like the Cockpit. I don't know if you guys know that in Leeds, but
where is it? It's in the centre.
Used to be quite it's in the centre. Yeah, it was the kind of pinnacle of all the Leeds music scene, really. Some of the biggest bands used to come through there, and we used to do some shows in there and other sort of similar places. And from there we just started spreading out and going further afield, and gigs in London and Manchester and you name it, we've probably played there, to be honest. So yeah,
that's good.
That's really
That is good. Do you remember what your first gig was like? Does he look back at fond memories, or was it something that kind of you're so nervous it all kind of like took over?
No, our first gig was really quite special, actually. We decided to do a gig to just our family and our friends, which was really it sounds quite cheesy, but at the time it was quite intimate. It must have been 50 people tops in this kind of rehearsal room that we used to rent out, which was a really cool place. Actually, it's not there anymore, but it was like an old church that had been converted into a big rehearsal room, and not many people knew about it. So we were quite privileged to rehearse out of there. We thought, let's put a little gig on and just kind of test the water a bit, and all our sort of immediate family and friends came down, and it was just really nice. It was nice to kind of just expose ourselves a little bit, and obviously they all loved it, we kind of took it from there, really. So that was a great sort of gig, and we had one of my mates is a photographer, and he came down and he took some snaps that night, and it's quite weird looking back at them, actually. We were a very different band then to what we are now, so just in terms of our growth and how we sort of changed songwriting and whatnot, that was our first gig.
Incredible. I really like that. It's like nice humble beginnings, and then sort of a bit of a trajectory from there. So did you get a record deal a few years ago? I was trying to sort of find it all out. How did it go from sort of that and then your trajectory up to sort of the album?
So the album came out last year before last, and it did really well. We had a good bit of sort of press off it, and we did a few shows and whatnot, and things kind of going really well. But it was at the same time, coronavirus and all that kind of stuff was starting to bubble a little bit in the background. And then we were approached by a label who wanted to re-release the album on vinyl. So we hadn't really thought about it before. We spoke about doing vinyl, but we didn't. I don't know. We kind of ruled it out because it was quite expensive, and we didn't quite know how many people still bought vinyl. Being honest, it turns out there's this mental underground kind of
obsession.
scene of people just buying vinyl.
Yeah. I am one of them.
He's got this label. He wants to re-release the record, and we had loads of conversations with our management and whatnot, and kind of came to a bit of a deal. And the album was re-released on vinyl on this label. It probably did better on vinyl than it did on sort of CD.
So, we are seeing that a lot with these up and coming artists, like people releasing CDs and vinyls. They're jumping up in these physical sales charts so quickly. Like, I can't remember who it was, but who was it? Someone released the Christmas song. Was it the Lutras? Yeah, they ended up like top 10 at one point.
Yeah,
physical sales, which is crazy.
Yeah, loads of people crazy. And I think people are getting really into it. And to me, it's like I buy as much as I can, because I just think some of these bands as well, you're going to get these vinyls, and then if they do go big time, they're going to be worth even more. So I'm like, that's going to be worth it, because people just want to sort of remember that like moment in time for that band, don't they? But for the vinyl. Go on.
And I was going to say, it just brought a new edge to our sound. I mean, we were well accustomed to hearing the songs as they were, in the digital sense. But then we got the vinyl cut, and we were in the studio listening to it, and it just sounded like a different band. There's something about it being on vinyl that just, I don't know, I can't describe it, but it just sounded completely different, but the same at the same time.
Yeah.
And it just sounded huge. And, so I think we kind of collectively agreed as a band that anything we release moving forward is going to go on vinyl as well, because it's just for our own personal sort of egos, if it sounds great. So,
yeah. Well, it gives more depth, doesn't it? I feel like it makes you feel more like you're in the room with the band. Whereas like if you listen to digitals, it almost is this flat, like mono sort of the same the whole way through. There's no like, can't feel the distance between the instruments, I guess, is what I'd like to kind of how I'd describe a vinyl. Yeah. Like the vinyl, you can kind of like stick it on and your mind's blown because you feel like the band's around you. It's a completely different experience. And it's so good.
Definitely. Yeah, no. So we're hoping to to put any future releases out on vinyl as well, which is great. And a lot of people have said since getting the vinyl that they just think it sounds so much better, and they'd happily purchase vinyl off us again. So we'll continue that plan. So
that's all that really matters, isn't it? As long as people will buy it again, there you go.
Exactly. So
Nice one. I've just been distracted because it says the Zoom's meeting's going to end, but it shouldn't. So we might have to change the Zoom meeting in 10 minutes, but I'm not sure why, because we have.
I was going to say, we're literally paying for it.
Yeah, which is really annoying.
Put some more money in the meter.
Yeah, I might have to. I'll pop down one shop, top it up like like the old electricity meter.
Yeah.
But sorry, that threw me off. I'll give people a warning. We'll have a wee break and I'll have a look at it in a few minutes. So the album came out, and then what was the plan to, as you said, do a second album? And then has that changed at all with COVID?
Yeah, well, so last year was going to be touring the album really. So we had loads of kind of shows lined up and festivals, and we had a string of dates with the Kaiser Chiefs, and we were doing loads of stuff, and obviously it all went belly up, and none of that happened for obvious reasons, and that's all moved into this year. So we're in a bit of a weird place. So last year we spent the time that we could just recording the second album, because we had a bunch of songs that we'd kind of wrote that didn't well, either didn't make the first album or have always been sitting there but didn't feel right to go on the first record. So we spent most of last year just basically recording the second album. We've always been quite fortunate as a band that we're quite productive in that sense. So we're always writing. There's always kind of songs floating between us, either a guitar riff that Matt's kind of come up with or a vocal line that Jamie's thought of. There's always an idea that's kind of doing the rounds between us. So we had this batch of songs sitting there. So last year we just went into the studio, we recorded, most of them, to be honest. We're pretty much there now. We've got a session booked in, I think next month, just to kind of go in and finalize a few bits and pieces. But the album too is pretty much sitting there. But yeah, so
exciting.
Yeah, it's just a bit strange because this year we're going to be in a bit of a weird position where we're still wanting to kind of plug a bit of record 1, but record 2 is going to be coming out next year, or this year, all being well. So yeah, I'm not quite sure on the plan yet, but yeah, new music and lots of shows. Hopefully, that's the kind of the output, I guess.
Fingers crossed. Well, you've got the first one back booked in, haven't you? Is it the Warehouse?
The Warehouse, yeah. So that's booked in. Yeah, that's hopefully going to happen, but I don't know what the latest is on that. Fingers crossed.
Is there still tickets available for that?
Still some tickets available. Yeah, so that's
I'm going to get some.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the Warehouse is where our student night was. It's where so that's where kind of like I had a better attendance to Warehouse weekly than I did my university course. So I think I missed like 4 the whole time I was at university, which is really, really
You're
awful.
Such a role model, Elliot.
I feel like I need to get back there. So I think for a gig will be the best thing for it.
The Warehouse is, it's an iconic sort of venue in Leeds, isn't it? It's
brilliant.
It's been there forever, hasn't it? But yeah, so we can't wait to play there. We were gutted that it got kind of moved and stuff, but fingers crossed we'll be there this year, and we'll put on a great show.
Yeah,
good.
Definitely. Yeah, sounds really good. Do you with your gigs coming back, have you thought about, because you've had quite a lot of growth really since over the last year or so, and do you think maybe like there'll be maybe an even bigger crowds and a lot more people there when you go back, and it would be a bit jarring? Because I think you probably normally see it scale up slowly, whereas this is like in such a big gap, it could jump up.
I think we were quite surprised when we announced the Warehouse. We obviously took a bit of a leap at the time because we'd kind of outgrown the little venues that we were playing at the time, and our manager was sort of saying that now's the time to take a leap and do a slightly bigger venue, and we were a little bit scared about it, to be honest. There's nothing worse than playing a half empty room. We'd rather play a smaller venue that's absolutely packed than a half empty sort of bigger room. But no, he said let's book it, let's kind of take a gamble and see what happens. And we were really surprised. We announced the gig on whatever day it was last year, and within a couple of days we'd sold over half of the tickets, which was quite we were really humbled by that, and quite astounded as well. And then sort of since then it's been a sort of steady trickle, and obviously I'm guessing a lot of people have sort of held off booking things while the whole kind of COVID thing's kind of playing out. But yeah, I mean, we've had a really great year of kind of engaging with fans, and loads of people have come aboard. So, and we're all desperate to kind of get back out there and do what we love, and, play gigs and whatnot. So I think we're ready for it. And the more people that get on board, the better for us. That's how we see it. So,
it's a big old venue, isn't it? What's the capacity of the Warehouse? Because it's a fairly large venue, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for gigs, I think it's about 12. It's about 1,200, something like that.
Wow,
so that's mega.
That's a big gig.
Have you ever been, Joe?
I can't remember if I went or not. You'd know better than I did. I used to just turn up on the train and you'd take me somewhere. And I didn't know where I
think you might have. I'd
imagine so.
Yeah, it's such for a gig. Like, I've never been for a gig, but it's one of them places I've always stood and thought, this stage is it's so central. It's a fairly decent sized stage, and it's a nice square room, so you're never going to be too far back. You're always going to be in a nice position to kind of look onto the gig, which I think is going to be. I'm excited. I'm going to buy some after this.
We'll just rock up.
You probably know the doorman, don't you? If you've been going every night.
Yeah.
He knows
He's back.
He's like, cool. You haven't been here for a while.
Yeah,
down again like he always does.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, we're really excited for it. So we just hope that we just hope it happens. And I know a lot of our fans are desperate to kind of see us. And likewise, we get so much off doing gigs. It's not just about playing the show. It's just about everything that kind of comes with it. It's the opportunity to kind of speak to your fans, and it's just been a really tough year, hasn't it? So yeah,
definitely.
Good.
Lovely. Well, I'm going to have to cut us, have a quick wee break, because we're going to have to restart the Zoom call. And I'm going to see what's going on and see if we'll...
Yeah, try and figure out why it's limited us, because I'll be asking for a refund.
Yeah. But we'll have a quick wee break.
Welcome back after the slight break after the Zoom meeting failures.
Everyone get on Twitter at Zoom, because
at Zoom, try and get us our refund.
It caused a stir. Scratch Record Army, get on Zoom, because a bit of a nightmare. But we're okay. We're off. We're recording again.
We're back. We're back. We are indeed. Well, let's try and dive into the influences, because you said earlier on in the podcast that you all have very different influences within the band, and it creates this nice, unique sound. Like, what sort of influences are they?
Oh man, just so eclectic. It's crazy. So I'll just kind of talk through the members. But so Matt, for instance, huge Beatles fan. Very inspired by the Beatles, and anything sort of in between. Really, he loves classical, jazz, probably the most diverse musical taste I've ever come across. Jamie's influenced by anything from the 90s, really massive, into his 90s bands, Oasis, Shed 7, all that kind of stuff. He's really into that. And Sam probably quite similar. Ben loves his Northern Soul, massive Northern Soul head, anything like that. He's there. Massive, and he loves Dire Straits as well. So he's massively into Dire Straits, one of his biggest influences. And for myself, I'm sort of similar to Matt. Really, I love good songs. I look for. I don't know. I've always been influenced by quite good drummers. As being, as obviously the drummer of our bands. I love bands like the Foo Fighters. Massive Foos fan. Seen them live quite a few times. Just kind of everything really. My granddad was a jazz drummer. Back in the olden days, and I was brought up on a lot of kind of jazz stuff, and he gave me my first kit when he developed really bad arthritis in his wrists, a bit of a drummer syndrome, but so he gave me a kit and sort of started teaching me some jazz stuff. So my roots are kind of quite into that kind of side of things, but just everything really. We just we just love good songs. That's kind of where our influence comes from, really.
That's good. The jazz is a massive influence when it comes to good music. I'm a big jazz head. I love my jazz, my John Coltrane's and Nat King Cole's, and
definitely
Miles Davis and all that lot. Do you find that jazz drumming that you started with still comes through, or do you try and make it a little bit more modern in a sense of towards Foo Fighter, Izzy type vibe?
It's kind of like halfway house, isn't it? We've got some stuff, on the second record, especially that we've just finished recording. There are big songs on there, big bangers. I would sort of attribute to more kind of Foo Fighters kind of sound. That's just how we've evolved as a band, really. Some of our earlier stuff is a lot more dancey sort of drum patterns, which kind of originate from a lot of jazz type playing and jazz feel to stuff. So it definitely influences in what I do in my playing. Technical kind of hi-hat patterns and things like that kind of come from jazz kind of sort of stuff. But it's just been a big evolution for us, really. We've kind of we started out as this kind of dancey type band, and we just kind of evolved into a bit more of a kind of rock heavy kind of layered with sort of synthy type stuff. It's quite hard to describe, really, but that's sort of how we've kind of evolved, really.
I think you can really tell. Like, I was really going through your album this morning over the last couple of days, and I was saying to Elliot, there's a couple of points in the album where it's sort of a new one would come on, and I had to sort of double check it hadn't sort of switched to another band at some points. It's like the fact that some of those songs come from the same band is amazing. You can really see a lot of different influences come through. But does that, I'm interested in the songwriting process for that. Do you have, Because some bands have like one very sole person that does it all. But is it quite collaborative from the beginning of writing songs as well to get those different influences in?
It's really collaborative, and I think that's kind of why there is so much diversity in the record, because there is 5 songwriters in the band. I mean, usually there's an idea, usually there's a riff or a keyboard pattern or something that somebody has kind of started, and it gets brought into the rehearsal room, and then collectively as a collection of songwriters, it turns into the songs that we kind of know now. So yeah, it's all kind of, it's all equally kind of written, the process. And we're quite strong believers in the songs wouldn't be the songs without the drums, without the bass, each sort of person brings an element of songwriting to the song. So in that sense, we're all kind of the songwriters, really.
I really like that. I think it does come through, and there's a lot of bands that maybe wouldn't be able to put out an album as good because they get quite set in their ways and can do it that way. But you can really see there's a lot of different influence coming through.
There's no ego in our band. We're quite level-headed in that sense, and we're all musicians at the end of the day, and we want to put out the best records that we can, and the only way we'll do that is by pulling on the strengths of each other. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not the best lyricist. I don't massively input into the lyrics. I have on occasion, but I'm not going to sort of start kicking off about that, because it's part of the process, isn't it, of writing a record. My strengths are clearly on the drums, clearly on the sort of the drums and the bass and the kind of the rhythm of the songs, and likewise, Jamie couldn't put down great lyrics if he didn't have a great song to put it over the top of. So it's just that process, isn't it?
Definitely. So do you do like all the producing as a band as well, or do you have a producer?
We have a producer. Yeah. So we work. We've had quite a few over the years, but we recently, for the record, for Mystery, we recorded that in Leeds with a guy called Andy Hawkins, who owns a studio called Nave in Leeds, and we've recorded album 2 there as well.
Cool.
So yeah, we work with him on our stuff at the moment. So yeah,
awesome. And he tries to pull together 5 different things and get it all in. Or do
Andy, well, yeah, we kind of, when we did the first record, it was a real turning point for us, because it was the first time we worked with somebody who essentially kind of tore us apart a little bit. We prior to recording with Andy, the people that we've recorded with before just basically pressed record and let us do what we wanted to do, which wasn't always the best thing for us. We were quite, I don't know, looking back now, it just created an environment where everything just kind of went onto the record, and it just was a bit of a mess. But Andy was the first person who said, no, that shit, that's coming out. This is probably better. Let's restructure this over here and whatever. And it turned into a much more, I don't know, just a better process for us. And we kind of changed our whole sort of thinking and approach to recording a record. And we did that for this second record as well. And Andy just tells us exactly, he's very blunt. He just tells us how it is. And it works for us. We need that as a band. So yeah.
We've had a lot of people on that have said very similar things about having that almost authoritative figure that's been about in the scene a bit longer, and they kind of can direct it. I think Salpa said that their lead like producer on their most recent records kind of helped them trim the fat. They kind of like helped them like kind of take out some of the parts which they felt kind of they weren't as necessary as maybe the synth being stronger or the things like that. So have you found that that's the type of thing that your producers kind of helped you lot do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Begin was one of our sort of bigger songs off the first record, and the original version of that was, I think it was about 4.5-5 minutes long.
Really?
And we went in with Andy. He said, there's some great parts here. If you want to get it on the radio, and if you want to, kind of turn it into the pop song that you probably want it to do, then we're going to have to look at kind of taking some stuff out and restructuring some stuff. And we did it, and it turned out to be a great song for us. And that was Andy's influence in that process. So yeah.
Cool. I like that. I wanted to dive in a little bit about sort of how you've managed to push your songs, especially recently. Because you've managed to get it sort of all over the shop. I feel like we see you, and like Elliot mentioned it when he was introducing you, you've been sort of on a lot of playlists, on a lot of TV shows and back in different things. So has that been a conscious effort to do that, or have you had any help with that?
a bit of both. You know, we're an incredibly hardworking band. You know, it's not just about all the things that, you know, you see in terms of the music, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes where, you know, there's emails being sent to people, there's, you know, connections trying to be made with certain people. So that's always been the case with us. As soon as we started kind of taking it a bit more seriously, you know, we've always been pushing that kind of agenda. We were quite fortunate that we signed a publishing deal a couple of years ago now with a guy where he basically has got so many contacts that he just gets our music to places. You know, as you mentioned, we've been on all sorts of things now, which is great, you know, because we never thought the publishing sort of arm to the band would ever really happen. But that's probably been our most successful sort of part of it, really. You know, we've been quite lucky in that sense that we've had quite a few things that have kind of tied us over, you know, over the last few years. We've had a few sort of things where, you know, we've even signed a few songs to some films in America that, you know, would never really get discussed in the UK because it's not really big news for us. But we did, you know, we signed, there's a big film that came out in, I think it was Mexico, randomly a couple of years ago now, called The Big Promise or something. And we signed a deal to have, I think it was Begin on that, you know, and it was a reasonably good paycheck for it, you know,
I'll bet.
You know, and things like that just kind of keep momentum and keep the band kind of moving in the right direction. So publishing is where it's at, really.
I think that's so interesting, because we haven't had anyone who's like signed a publishing. Like people try and do it themselves, and people are better or worse at it. But to actually have like a publishing deal where they sort of help you, that I think it's genius. Like, I think
it's brilliant.
Because it's just
awesome.
The more ears you get around your songs, just naturally it's just going to get you like more people coming to gigs, more people streaming it, more people buying the vinyls. Like,
well, I think the best deal that we signed was with Football Focus on BBC One. So I don't know if you know but noticed, but yeah, I think In Your Arms was on the first record was the soundtrack for Football Focus for 12 months, which incredible. You know,
that's mental.
You don't really process it until you think, yeah, it's like millions of people that tune into that program every week.
Amazing.
And, you know, so all that kind of stuff is just really, really positive. You know, has so much benefit in terms of just people hearing about you more and seeing you appear over here. And, you know, it's that kind of process of how a band kind of evolves to that place we're trying to get to, really.
Yeah, definitely.
That's it. Which is that the one? Is Football Focus the one that you've probably been the most like, oh, that's fucking cool, or like, is there one specifically that you've kind of that
stands
Watch Dogs
out? Is really cool as well, being on that.
Yeah,
I think the Watch Dogs one was the one where we started getting loads of comments to us through. So I think I can't remember what happened now, but I think Watch Dogs put a video clip up of the game. I mean, I'm not a massive gamer, so I've never played it. But they put a video clip of the game on YouTube with our song on it. And there was just kind of like hundreds and loads of commenting on the video. And I think it was the first time that the publishing deal had turned into something we could actually see in terms of people kind of commenting and stuff. So I think like with Football Focus, people just hear it. They go, oh, that's great. Sounds good or whatever, you know, or sounds not very good in some instances. But I think because Watch Dogs is quite you know, people are playing the game, they're hearing the song. It's quite an engaging sort of thing. That was quite exciting for us because we started hearing quite a lot of feedback from people, and you know, surprisingly, most of it was positive. You know, you always hear some comments of people not quite liking the song, or you know, you get some people that send some negative stuff, which is which is part of the process. Natural. But I think the Watch Dogs one, everyone from what I saw was really positive of the song, so that was great to see.
Yeah, and I think that sort of stuff does help massively. Like, I've always been like, the FIFA soundtrack's been a big thing for me, because I feel like every year the songs that are on there tend to blow up massively, because there's millions of people spending God knows how many hours a day playing FIFA, and the whole time they're playing these songs. And I think almost subconsciously then you hear it again and you're like, how I know this song, but I don't know where from. But you sort of grow to love it. But I think it's genius, really. Just
it's cool. It's cool.
Everywhere. Has that also led, because Leeds United seem to be big fans at the moment, and you've done some bits and bobs with them. So was that through this publishing thing? Was that more of a like you just sent them the songs?
That was just a local thing, really. Yeah, we did a couple of years ago now. We started playing a few shows for them at like sort of events and things, really. So Leeds United have got this huge kind of like exhibition kind of hall at the side of the ground, and they do all sorts of events in there. And they just kind of, I can't remember how it came about now. I think we just, I think we knew somebody there, and a conversation had happened, and they said, oh, would you like to come and play? And we went and did a show there, and we went, you know, did really well. And kept getting invited back. And I think the pinnacle was we got invited to play the Leeds United Player of the Year award ceremony, which is the big kind of closeout of the the league. And we set up in this big stage, big, anything kind of corporate like that, you get quite a lot of budget to do stuff. It's it's quite a glamorous kind of setting. The stage was so you had all these kind of effects kind of going on, and they gave us this kind of dressing room to the sort of side of the stage, and they asked us if the Leeds players could use that before they get brought onto the stage to do this big kind of presentation. So we were sat in this dressing room at one point, just kind of chilling out before the show, and all of the Leeds United team came in. And it was kind of a little bit awkward at first. We were sort of sitting there because we were kind of getting dressed and, kind of eating chips and, just the usual kind of pre-show stuff. And suddenly there was kind of, all the lead squad in there. But within 5 minutes, we were all kind of laughing and chatting. And, some of them have become, sort of, I won't say friends, but we kind of chat to them quite regularly on, social media and things like that. That was, and Leeds United have always been great to us since that point. They've kind of used our songs regularly for, videos they're doing online and things like that. So, no, it's really positive.
Amazing, sick. I mean, to have like Bielsa listen to it though is like a different story, isn't it? It's amazing that
crazy
that Marcelo Bielsa and you.
Actually.
Yeah, I saw
a letter a couple of days ago actually, just to sort of congratulate us on the record, which was nice. I mean, Ben and Jamie and the band are huge Leeds fans, so for that was quite a big deal. So
incredible. Yeah.
The question is, are you a Leeds fan? Are you a Leeds United?
I am, yeah. I mean, I'm not, I don't follow it religiously as Ben and Jamie do, but, I get behind the club and, recent results have been a little bit questionable, but, we keep going. We keep going and,
I love it. They're brilliant at the moment. They're like they've conceded the most and scored the most goals or something. So it's just basically like who knows what's going to happen. But that's quite good fun, isn't it? To be fair,
no, it's all good. Yeah, it's great. It's great having them behind us as well. The local thing is, as we mentioned earlier, the whole Leeds kind of thing is to get behind each other, and the fact that the club recognises that and still wants to support local bands and things is great.
That's your most. I believe it was your most recent video that you put out. That was kind of an ode to Leeds City, and you kind of did a big thing for it. Do you find that keeping yourself quite local, does that help your fan base in that area specifically? Do you find it's a quite an admirable thing, almost patriotic to some description?
Yeah, definitely. I think that video, I think it's Forever that you're talking about, the song. Yeah. That song was all about kind of, it wasn't necessarily about Leeds, but it was about just the spirit of togetherness and, the whole kind of, it wasn't written about coronavirus, but it was quite timely that all that kind of stuff was kind of coming about. And we had this song that was about, just, as I say, togetherness and kind of getting through bad times and, looking back at kind of things that have kind of been really positive in your life. And it just felt like the video for that song should be about Leeds, and we spoke to the guy who shot it and he thought, similar as well. And it just felt like the right thing to do for that particular song. And, we've actually just shot another video for a song that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about, but I'll
do it anyway.
It's about a month just before Christmas. Actually, we started shooting a video for one of our big songs off the next record, and that was a similar sort of thing. Lots of kind of aerial footage of the city and stuff. So we like the trend. So we'll see how it goes for the next video.
Oh, that is good. It's good to kind of keep it quite local in some respects and keep the proudness of the city that you're based, for sure.
Well, lockdown didn't help. We had to stay with we had to shoot within the parameters of our restrictions. But Leeds is great, and it's so much kind of to it. You've got the city on one hand, and half an hour out of the city you've got the Dales and all the kind of landscapes between there. So some great areas to shoot a video in. So we thought we'd kind of capitalise on that.
Yeah, for sure. This new record, then let's have a little bit on that. What can we expect? How long is it we're going to expect? Is it lots of different influences, or is it following one sort of vein the whole way through?
I think it's following it. It's more of an album that you would probably associate as an album. So the songs are very similar. And And yeah, like I said, we recorded it about a year ago, and it's kind of, we've been recording it on and off over the last 12 months in terms of just polishing songs off and things. And we got the great session in about a month's time, where we'll go and sit down with Andy, our producer, and we'll kind of agree kind of song structures, the song kind of the running structure of the album, the kind of moments between songs. That for me is the moment in that process where it's the most exciting, kind of sitting down as a band saying, songs are all recorded, all mastered, let's have a conversation about how it all fits and kind of links together. So we've recorded a whole bunch of songs. Not all of them will probably make it onto the record. So I think we're going to try and agree, I don't know, it's that awkward conversation, is it, of what's going to go on it and what's not. We'll all have our sort of favorites, but yeah, I imagine it'll be a similar length to the first record, so somewhere between sort of 10 to 12 songs. Cool. Yeah, it's we were quite obviously, I don't want to blow our own whistles or anything, but we were very proud when we finished it. I think it blows the first record out of the water, to be honest. So
that's very exciting.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
So you've got this new single coming out next Friday, I believe, if my dates are correct.
22nd, I think. Yeah.
Is that single definitely going to be on the album then? Is that sort of?
We think so. Yeah. We think so. The plan is that the way it works now is, bands kind of release singles right up until they just release an album, which is a collection of all the songs really. But we think it's going to be on the album. I mean, it depends how well it does. If it does really well and it's a standalone single, we might not decide to put it on the record. But I think as it stands at the moment, it will be on the album. Yeah.
Cool. So with doing an album, just quickly, because I've read a lot of stuff recently about a lot of people saying that albums in general are sort of on the way out a little bit. And I think they got quite a lot of backlash, but it is a lot of bands are focusing on singles, EPs, and quite quick fire content. So is it like a conscious decision to pick albums, or has it just been naturally you thought that's what we're going to do?
I think it's just in us from sort of just probably a bit of our age, we're kind of used to albums and that kind of thing. But I think you're right. I think the way it's going is, bands do just release singles now. That's the trend of how it's all going. And, especially in the last kind of 12 months, we've had to keep people engaged, and that's by releasing singles and kind of dripping music out to people. Yeah. But I think as a collection of individuals, we want to put out a record that's kind of like a product. This is kind of a body of our work and, our last 12 months of writing. We want to finish that process off by putting out a record that people can kind of have and and sort of cherish. So yeah.
I do like that. I find that the EPs at the minute, EPs and singles, because it's such quick fire content, and I'm not pointing this at anyone, but sometimes it can come out a little bit rushed. I was going to say shit, but that's not fair. But it can come across as a little bit rushed sometimes when you're looking at some of these bands and artists that are just releasing EPs and singles without seeing it as a bigger picture. Like we had City Lights on, attempted to have City Lights on, and we had it all kind of fell apart. But we had a conversation with them about it, and they've constantly released EPs, but their EPs are like albums,
right?
But they just call them an EP.
Okay.
But you find that some artists kind of like get into this EP routine and kind of like keep just chucking them out. But I find it's nice when you wait a couple of years, you get a nice rounded album project that comes out, because there's a lot more to an album. It comes with a lot of extra content, even to the point of like the vinyl, the sleeves, the artwork, the videos, and I don't know, it feels like a bit more of a rounded project.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's the whole process of putting it all together, isn't it? And I still, to the point earlier, we had far more vinyl sales than what we anticipated, and I think that's because people still like going out and picking up a record and opening it up and looking at the artwork and the kind of comments in the artwork, I guess, and all that kind of stuff. I certainly do. I haven't bought a record for a while now, but thinking back to when I was buying records regularly, it's great. I love picking up and kind of smelling it, and kind of taking the plastic off and holding it in your hand. It's quite hard to explain that to people who are born in a different age now, where it's all on a phone, which is quite sad really, because it doesn't sound as great as like I said earlier, putting a record on and hearing that magical sort of sound really.
Yeah, the artwork and stuff, is that you lot? Like I know some people take the whole creative experience and they do everything down to the font of the text that is used in like the credits in the handbook. Like, do you lot take that much fine detail in it, or is it done by an external sort of company?
Yeah, we all tried to be budding artists at some point in the band's history.
Nice.
And came to the conclusion that we're all shit really at it. So yeah, no, we farm it out. Well, I say farm it out. We've got a couple of individuals who we've worked with for most of the band stuff over the years, and yeah, they do it for us. So yeah,
that's
great.
Cool. That is cool. Yeah, we've got an artist that we work with quite a lot that I kind of doodle an idea because I can't draw. I've got no graphic design in me. I'm not very good when it comes to that, but I've got the ideas. So it's quite nice being able to have someone that's on the team to some extent that you can just be like, look, this is the idea. We want it to kind of look like this, have this vibe. Can you just make it look less shit?
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens with us really. So we just, we give some concepts to what we kind of want, and they send back some ideas, and we kind of have a fight about it, and then we kind of settle on what we want really. So yeah, I
like that. That's good. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Cool.
For sure.
Go on now.
No, you go, Jack. Go on.
I had a quick question because now I'm conscious of running out of time, so we tried to throw a thing in at the end about what it's like being a drummer. Because we've not had any drummers on yet. And I made a comment that they tried to spin to be negative, and I was actually meaning it positively about drummers. But I just said that I think they're can be very underappreciated in the sense of sometimes you're sort of at the back, people aren't maybe as bothered about who the drummer is in general. They want to see the lead singer or the guitarist and that. Have you found that something that you've struggled with, or do you quite like sort of being at the back, or you're a bit I sort of want to get a bit more involved at the front? Or
no, I'm quite traditional in that sense. I'm quite happy being at the back, but yeah, good question. I mean, what's it like being a drummer? I mean, terrifying in some instances because the whole band kind of really evolves around you starting the song.
Mm-hmm.
We're quite our technical, or our live setup is quite technical. I play to a click track live, right. So I've got all that kind of stuff to kind of deal with. So I've got to make sure I'm actually absolutely on the money with the click track and the backing sort of tracks that we use. But there's nothing better than kind of getting up on stage, smashing the drums, when you're playing the big stages, there's nothing better than hearing your drums kind of booming out across, a couple of thousand of people. I can't really describe it, to be honest. But the only downside is just that you're always the first to leave, first to arrive, and the last to leave.
Yeah.
But it's great. I love it. And me and Ben, who is the bass player in the band, we've got a little thing kind of going on in when we're on stage. The drums and bass are so kind of linked, so we've got our little groove thing going on when we're playing. It's just great. I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world.
I think it's sick as well that you're out here talking to us and almost doing some of the press stuff, because you find that there isn't many bands apart from Foo Fighters, Arctic Monkeys, the only two that come off my head, where the drummer is involved in the interviews as much. And I think it's really quite it's interesting, but also sick because you're still so almost press ready. It's nice to hear you are so good with answering questions and being honest and being open. Is it something you've consciously tried to make yourself part of the press releases as well, or is it just come naturally to you?
I wouldn't say it comes naturally. I mean, probably a couple of years of doing things like this. But no, like I said earlier, we're all kind of equal in the process of the band. Jamie and Matt will normally do the most of the interviews. Jamie's the singer and Matt's the sort of lead guitarist. They would typically do most of the press stuff because they're far more interesting than I am, to be honest. You guys have got a bit of a rough deal.
Don't be harsh on yourself.
Come on.
But no, I love this kind of stuff. It's great. It's great talking about it. And it's like the process of, we've been in the studio for the last 12 months recording and, getting the music out there is why we're doing it. So the fact that we're having this conversation today is amazing because it means that the record is due imminently, so that's amazing for me. So yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Right. I've got a couple of weird scenario questions. Thought I'd test this out. I'm going to test this out with you to try and get to know you and the band a little bit more. I don't know whether you've listened to much Radio X over the last couple of years, but there's a specific
Don't
DJ.
give away who we're copying.
It's not a direct copy. It's a homage. It's I'm paying my respect to the bloke who does it to lots more people than we do.
We're copying Radio X, yeah.
So essentially, I'm going to give you a scenario, and you've got the rest of the band to pick with who you'd like to do it. So say we'll go with the first one. You've had an accident and somebody has been killed in this accident. You've got the body in the boot. Who from the band would you have help you get rid of that body?
I can answer that question already, to be honest, because I know straight away. Because, yeah, I'm not saying the scenario's happened.
I was going to say, it was only last week. I'll tell you who I rang.
So in that scenario, I'd probably go with Sam, our keyboard player, because he just knows everything about... Is the scenario suspicious? As in, I need to get rid of the body because of something that's happened.
Yeah.
So
just get it gone.
Get it gone. Sam would be able to help me out with that no end. So yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Right, I've got two more. So it's been, the world has gone to shit. Coronavirus has completely taken over the world. We had to delve into bunkers. We're living in an underground society. Now, you have to send out one of the band to go and collect and forage for food. Who are you sending?
That is a great question. So I'm essentially sending one of the band potentially to their death. Is that what you're...
Potentially.
But also you need to trust them, because if they come back with a fucking apple and a Mars bar to keep you alive for the next 6 months, you're in trouble.
So I'd probably send out in that scenario then. So it's essentially a trust question, isn't it? Who I trust the most.
Yeah, who do you believe in can deal with that? Who can you believe in to go and be able to get the best food for you all? Because I know if I sent Joe, would probably be all right. But if Joe sent me, I'd come back with some of the strangest things probably going.
He'd get distracted. He'd be wandering around looking at things. And I'd be like, Elliot was starving down here. Come on.
I'd probably send out Jamie. Jamie, the singer. He's the most sort of practical, driven person that I know. So I think Jamie would go out. He'd come back with some really healthy food. I think, and where the hell did he go out from? So I'd go with Jamie in that scenario. He'd probably do quite well there.
Beautiful.
Right, and my last one for this little section, You've been kind of cornered by the mob. I know it's quite old school, but you've been cornered by the mob. They're kind of telling you you've got into some trouble with them and you've got to help them out. You have been given 10 kilos of cocaine. Who are you asking in the band to help you shift it?
Oh, Ben undoubtedly, yeah.
He's a coke dealer. So.
He's the one we get our coke from, so that's probably who.
Ben would be able to help me. He's maybe got some contacts that could help me in that scenario. So no, he's not really, but
he's not, but he has, but he isn't.
Maybe. Allegedly, there may be some people you might know.
I think once we'd sort of had a conversation about it and maybe tried to probably Ben. Yeah, probably Ben.
Don't need to explain any further. Ben, easy man.
I like that.
I like that.
I quite enjoyed that little section. It's the first time we've done it, and I feel like I'm going to bring it to everyone now.
Put me on the spot there,
Right. So before we wrap up, we have one last little thing that we like to do on this podcast, and it's our section where we kind of shout out bands and up and coming artists that we're listening to and we're enjoying at the minute. So what sort of people are you listening to at the moment, and can people get out and check out that need more following?
Need more following. Well, a big supporter of kind of the Leeds scene. So, lots of up and coming bands in Leeds. I think it got mentioned earlier, but bands like Skylights, they're doing really well at the moment. We're good friends with those guys. They're, I think they got a new record out or coming out shortly, if I can remember rightly. So, please go and check them out. Who else are we listening to at the moment? Trying to think. There's a young band who we've had on tour with us a couple of times, or did some support with us a couple of times. A band called Backspace, who they're quite young actually. I think they're sort of still. It might still be at school, to be honest. But fantastic. I think they got in touch with us a couple of years ago, and they sent us some music, and we were quite impressed. We were quite blown away by it, and they came and did a couple of shows with us, and they're doing some great things in Leeds. So check out Backspace. And then anything else really from Leeds? I'm trying to think who else I know who's doing stuff at the moment. What are you guys listening to?
We're Leeds-wide. I'm listening to Lucky Iris, which if you haven't checked them out, brilliant. Lucky Iris they're a duo, and it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and they're a couple, and they basically do this synth pop. And she's got one of these voices that like can suit any style of music she put it to, but when it's over that synth kind of roll, it sounds so sick.
Nice.
And also Mega Happy, the other one from Leeds that we're listening to. They're both they're really tiny they're quite tiny bands, but they've both got very interesting stories, and I think they're class artists.
Mega Happy are really good, to be fair. Once we've had their song on the playlist, it kept coming on. And like one comes on, you're like, which one's this again? I checked them, like, this song's really good. So that's a good one. Mega Happy.
Cool. I'll check those out. Yeah. There's loads of good music in Leeds at the moment. There's lots of bands kind of doing stuff, and I think this year, if things start to go back to normal, we'll probably see that kind of surge of bands kind of coming back out and doing shows and releasing new music and that kind of stuff. So
it's so exciting. It is exciting. The scene can really, I feel like it's going to have a slingshot effect for the music scene. I really do.
I think people have realised how much they miss kind of gigs. People who kind of just your average kind of gig goer probably never really appreciated at the time how important gigs are to people and society. So I think as soon as we can, I think there'll be an influx of announcements of shows and gigs, and promoters will probably never be so busy. And that's kind of great. That's exactly what the industry needs, because I know a lot of people have struggled quite a lot with it all. So
I can't wait. I'm going to start having a savings pot that's gig orientated.
No, you won't. You're just going to get an overdraft. Savings pot, my ass.
Savings pot of the bank. That is what it is.
You're just going to spend all the money we don't have going to gigs. I can't fucking wait.
Well, swings and roundabouts. Joe, do you have anyone that you're listening to you want to shout out?
I've got one that I had noted down for a previous one I never got time to, so I'll do it. Still got the notes in front of me. I wanted to give a shout out to Vela Incident, because they've been knocking about on Twitter a lot recently, and they're one that I sort of saw a few times, and again listened to a couple of their earlier tunes and people saying how like amazing they were, and I was like, yeah, they're really good sort of thing, but wasn't as blown away. And then they dropped this Queen of Liverpool track more recently, and I'm like, I sort of get it now. Sometimes you sort of hear it and I'm like, they are really, really fucking good. They've got quite like Stone Roses vibes, like just good riffs, melodies, but like quite an anthemic feel. But then the vocals are really quite raw and make it feel a bit more DIY, which I think it is. But it's quite nice to have like that quite polished backing music with the quite raw vocals over the top. It does work. So Vela Incident, especially their newest tune, Queen of Liverpool, they're really, really good.
Cool.
Beautiful. Wow. Yeah. I think it's come to a natural end, lads.
There we go.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, great to meet you, and great. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, hopefully next time we'll be in a studio and we can actually be face to face, and it can be a real interview instead of a real proper one. So, but it's been lovely. It's been very nice to meet you, and your album is coming out in
an amount of time
soon. Later this year, we hope, but still a few I's to dot and a few T's to cross. But this year at some point. So yeah.
But we've got On the Ropes releasing 22nd of Jan. So
correct. Yeah.
So potentially, I think by the time this goes out, it will probably already be out.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
It will be.
Actually, it will be definitely. So go and check out On the Ropes by Apollo Junction because that'll be out now, and listen to that while you're waiting for the album to come out.
For sure.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
It's been a pleasure,
mate.
lads.
Much
So
appreciated.
if you've made it this far, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, give it a little subscribe and a review. That'd be nice. And we'll see you all on the other side. Peace.